Queer Stunts, a podcast based on LGBT community. Throughout this podcast, we discuss in detail about trending topics surrounding the community. We talk about important news, interesting and inspiring stories, and we also talk to few people who have mind-boggling experiences. My name is Neville Nazrit, and I will be your host for this entire series. Please don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can be notified every time we update a new episode. So, without further ado, let's just dive into our topic. So, as you would have already seen in the title of today's podcast, today we're going to discuss about spilling the tea on police brutality. So recently, few incidents have actually piqued this topic to an extent where people want to know more and more about it, and where it has become an important initiative to let these policemen know that whenever they try to harass or brutally torture people in the name of law, they are doing something wrong. And we as general public need to stand in front of them and stop them from doing this. Otherwise, I don't think that day is far when the policemen are just killing people, encountering people on the streets. So, as you would have already heard by now about the incident which happened in Tamil Nadu, this incident was about Jairaj and Phoenix. These were a father and son who were brutally tortured by policemen for 3 days, and on the third day, they both gave up on their life one after another and they passed away. So, what actually hurts me the most is that the reason why they were tortured, the reason why for 3 days, fresh set of clothes was sent to the police station and the blood soaked clothes were sent home. The reason why they were tortured so badly, they were fisted, they were things which were put in their butthole, and any and everything of this happened because they did one small mistake, and that was they kept their shop open for 30 minutes extra after curfew. So, anybody who thinks that's sane for this thing to happen, I'm so sorry. You don't sound like a proper human being, because there's no sane reason for torturing people and bleeding them and hurting them and giving them so much pain just because they kept their shop open for 30 minutes more. So this recently happened, and people were also aggregated because in the past few days there have been a lot of recalling about what is happening with black people in America. So this is also not a new case. It's been happening for a long time, but people haven't been standing for these people until now. That's what I feel, because I've heard it through so many sources. But it still feels like a relief that at least people have started talking about it now. There have been people talking about Black Lives Matters, All Life Matters. So this really has brought up this issue in front of the world. And that's when a lot of people in India also decided to come out with their stories and tell people that it actually happens. Like, if you think brutality by police doesn't happen in India, you are absolutely wrong. So the reason why these incidents does not get reported in the first place is because you usually go to a police station to report it, and when you tell a policeman that you want to file a complaint, an FIR against another policeman, so they try to save their fellow colleagues and they don't report it in the first place. So just for the sake of knowledge, if a police does not report this incident, you can go either to High Court or Supreme Court, or else you can even go to a human rights commissioner. But unless and until you don't have a strong proof about what happened with you, it's very difficult to actually get something out of it. So the maximum you get is either in compensation from the government. You can get the police officer suspended. Majorly they suspend people, I don't know why. Very few people get a pay cut, or they are just removed from their job. But then it actually does not do anything to the damage which has happened to you emotionally, personally and mentally. So then again, this is not a really good idea, and trust me when I say this, there are many people who do not even report it in the first place. So the main reason why I wanted to do a podcast on this specific topic, that is brutality by policemen, was because the LGBT community is the one who faces a lot of brutality in their general life. Like, usually, for a heterosexual person, you usually encounter this when you are caught doing something wrong, or you try to have an argument with the police and they're trying to tell you something, know something. But for the LGBT community, it's just a normal day. You're just walking around, the police suspects that you belong to the community, and they think it's their obligation to come and bother you. I know a lot of people would think that I'm just overreacting right now, but trust me, it happens. Just one day, that is the pride day when police actually tries to be nice to you. Other than that, you always have these scares that the police might try to catch you, and they'll try to blackmail you, physically use you, or even threaten you to, force you to come out to your family, etc. Which actually is quite traumatic because you don't expect people who are supposed to save you turn out like that, right? So, the reason why I am so confident and I'm saying this is because when I did a research on this specific topic some time ago, I was looking for an evidence of somebody who could tell me about their personal life story, which was in relation to police brutality. And I did not know it in the first place, but then while desperately looking for stories, I came across my friend who actually confessed to me something which has happened to him in his 11th standard. So, people who read my blog would all obviously be aware that I did write about a story. So, people who are not reading my blog and just listen to my podcast, so I just like to say that story again because it's really a very heart touching story, and it's actually important for people to know that something like this actually happens in the first place. A lot of people do not talk about it, but it actually happens, and then you need to understand the intensity of the situation and how threatening it can be. So, ordinarily, what used to happen was that Nirmal used to travel home alone, and this fine day, few of his classmates decided to join him. They told him that they could join him and show him a road which could actually help him save around 15-20 minutes of his time, which is actually quite nice because he used to stay in the east and his college was in the west. So traveling was almost a 40-45 minutes journey, and saving 15 minutes could actually help him reach home faster and rest for a little longer time. So then he decided to go with them. And while they were walking, they suddenly realized that they were on the railway tracks. And as his friends actually told him that this would save some time, he decided it's okay, there's nothing wrong with crossing railway tracks, right? So while they were about to cross the railway tracks, there were two men, like civil uniform, civil dress, wearing formal shirt, formal pant, who stopped them. Now what happens is that as soon as these men try to stop them, his friends decide to run away. And Nirmal, as it was his first time even through this road, he did not even know his friends. He couldn't understand what is happening in the first place. And he tried running, but even before he could start running, one of those men caught him. And soon he figured out that these were cops, and they'd caught him because he had violated a rule because it was illegal to cross tracks. Now, Nirmal was super scared because he did not know about this in the first place, and then he actually realized that it could be something serious. So he begged these policemen to leave him, and he promised that he'll never get back on these tracks again. He'll always follow the normal route, and then it was his first time, he really didn't know. But then the cops did not listen to a single word he said. They just grabbed him through his collar, and then they just pulled him, and he kept begging the whole way around, like, please leave me, please forgive me, please let me go, please let me go. But then the cops did not even bother listening to him, and they were just walking, and while they were on their way, one of the cops asked him whether he has a cell phone, and if yes, he asked him to call his father because there was supposed to be a proper procedure to be followed, so that there'll be a fine he was supposed to pay, etc. And they were taking him to the police station. That's what they informed him. So now Nirmal was super scared because his father was very strict. So he kept begging, please forgive me. My father is very strict. He might try to hurt me severely. And the police decided to stop for a minute, and then they started asking these questions about him, like, oh, where was he from? What was he doing there? And then suddenly one policeman asked him, what could you do if you want your freedom? Now, Nirmal had no idea how to answer this question in the first place. And that's when he actually realized the cop looking at the other cop's eyes and rolling it in such a way that is super creepy, and it scared the shit out of him. Now, Nirmal had no idea what was happening because he just seen two policemen rolling eyes, having this wicked, creepy smile. And then they suddenly again catch his collar and they just keep walking. Now, what he realizes is that they are not walking towards a police station, and the place seems to be like a construction site. Now, this was a little weird for him because he thought they might try to talk to him more, try to get to know him more, maybe ask him about something. But suddenly, what he heard was something he couldn't even believe in the first place. So, the policeman told him that if you want your freedom, you are going to be our whore. So the actual term was, अगर तेरे को इधर से जाने का है तो तेरे को मेरा रंडी बनना पड़ेगा, एंड एक बार हम लोग को तू खुश करेगा तो हम लोग तेरे को छोड़ देगा. So which literally means that once you satisfy us, we will let you go. Now, it was a little weird for him because he did not expect policemen to even utter these words, because they are the one who's supposed to protect the law, and being homosexual and having homosexual activity was a criminal act back then. But then before he could actually do anything, he was actually warned that even if he tries to act a little smart, then the police would actually force or just put some false allegations on him, and then they'll try to destroy his life. Now, while this conversation was happening, the policeman who was right in front of him, who pulled him through his collar the entire time, decides to leave him, and he unzips his pant and he gets his dick out and he tells him, choose mera, which means suck my dick, worship my dick. Now, before he could actually do anything, the other police was behind him, tries to push his face in front of that penis and forces him to take it inside. And while this was happening, he pulls his back from behind, he pulls Nirmal's pants down, and he directly inserts a finger in his asshole. Now, people who are actually aware of how anal sex works, it's very important to have lube or use lube. But it seemed like the intention of this policeman was to actually torture him, and they decided not to use any lube, no spit, nothing. And he just inserted his finger and he kept inserting, and Nirmal couldn't actually scream or shout because in this incident what was happening was that there was a dick in his mouth and he did not know how to react to this situation. So this happened for quite some time, where he's trying to please him while the other guy is trying to put as many fingers as he could. But as Nirmal being a virgin guy, he actually was in a lot of pain, and he realized that there was some bleeding also because obviously there were nails and all involved, no proper lube used. And he actually did not realize what he's supposed to do to save himself. Now, this happens for quite some time, around 10-15 minutes, where he's been sucking a dick and then there's somebody fisting his fingers inside his bum. And while this is happening, suddenly the officer who's giving him a blowjob says, listen, now I'm bored of his mouth. You can take over his mouth and let me destroy his virgin ass. So now Nirmal was actually scared of what is going to happen. He did not know how to react to this. So he's trying to be there in the moment and trying to analyze the situation of how he can actually try to save himself, etc. and they switch their position. So the guy who was actually fisting him decides to come in front. He unzips and then he puts his thing in his mouth. And the policeman who was giving him a blowjob earlier goes behind him, and he takes some spit in his hand, and then he just applies it. And just when he's about to enter his dick, he realizes that there's a car which was coming through the construction site, and that was supposed to stop there. Now, this was a construction site which I don't think people usually used to visit. So even they were surprised about the situation happening. So they just tried to contain themselves, and that's the time when Nirmal decided that if he wants to be safe from this, he has to run now. And he decides to run the way he is. So his pants are almost near his knees. His shirt is almost properly tucked in his collar, etc. But then he decides to take this risk and he runs the way he is right now. And while running, he's trying to pull his pant up. And it's an uncomfortable run, but then he had to do it to save himself. So he runs, and suddenly he notices that he couldn't run anymore because there was a lot of pain which was inflicted during the whole session, which was with the policeman. So he decides to hide behind a garbage bin. So he waits there for a few minutes, and he does see that these two policemen are running and looking for him. But then he was hidden well, and that's the reason why they pass him and they go ahead. He still waits there for a few minutes. He does wait there for a few minutes. And after 15-20 minutes passed, he decides that it seems a little safer. And he comes out of behind the garbage bin. He walks a little, looking everywhere if he could find the policeman. And luckily he finds the auto rickshaw wala. He tells him the location, and fortunately the police wala does not see him, and the rickshaw wala actually tells him a yes that he would go to that location. He sits in the rickshaw and he goes home. Now once he goes home, he actually analyzes the whole situation while going and decides that whether he should tell what happened with him to his parents or not. But what he realizes is that even if he tries to tell this incident to his parents, they would not even understand it in the first place, or else they won't even believe it in the first place. Though he had these injuries in his body, but then he really didn't think that he could actually open up to people and tell them about this, because he would be severely judged with this incident. And then, right, the trauma which happens. So he has fever for the next few days, and that actually helps him not go to college also. And then his parents cannot force him because he's actually not well. They take him to the doctor, but then he does not tell him the real cause of the problem. He just takes the normal medicine which is given by the doctor, and he keeps it in his heart. So this incident made me realize, actually, to be very honest, I'm not giving you all the details which happened in that site, because I don't think he will be comfortable listening to this. So yeah, I've given you whatever is important, the main crust of what has happened. And it actually is disheartening thinking that he couldn't actually talk to people about this incident when he was in his 11th standard. He's actually in his 27 years now, and then now he actually spoke about it to me, and again he's being anonymous about it. He just wants people to realize that these things happen. So please be aware of this situation, and if somebody is coming and telling you about situations like these, please don't try to mock them or make fun of them, because it's engraved in their heart and they're trying to share a piece of their heart to you. So he's just a normal kid who has these homosexual instincts, and then this guy is being harassed in such a way. Just imagine what would actually happen with transgenders and the sex workers out there. Because whenever they have these encounters, trust me, things would become much worse than what happened with Nirmal. Nirmal luckily got saved because of that car. So there is nobody else to save these transgender or these sex workers. So what we need to realize is that we need to understand why and how do these people have this power, and we need to do something so that these people get punished. Like one policeman getting punished for doing a stupid thing like this can stop other 10 people, other 10 policemen. So really, I think a country need to have some strict regulation against police not misusing the power. Otherwise, I really feel this day isn't far where police is just encountering people right in front of your eyes, like right on the main road. People are just encountering people for inflicting pain, inflicting terror. So yeah. So this was all I wanted to talk about police brutality. And now, as we've already spoken about brutality, and I also told you that the transgender community does face a lot of problems, we wanted to discuss a topic based only on transgender. So I tried writing an article on my blog about transgenders, but then that received the least traffic my entire blog series have received, which was quite upsetting because people are ready to read about stupid things, but something with such important value is something people are not even interested in opening, looking at the name or the title. So if you really listen to this whole entire podcast, it'll be an humble request that please go ahead and listen to the other one also, because there's nothing wrong in knowing about another community, because it can help you understand the community better, it can help you connect to the community better, and it also helps the community feel accepted. Now, being a queer, like knowing queer culture, you might want to understand the whole entire scenario of what happens in the LGBTQ community. You cannot just know about gay people or queer people. You need to know about everybody, right? Because I'm sure once you get involved with the community, you also get to interact with a lot of transgenders, you get to interact with intersex people, sex workers. And there's nothing wrong with these people. They're exactly like us. The only reason why these people are going through this torture, this judgments, is because of this stigma which is spreaded by the society itself. So as we call ourselves being a bunch, the LGBT community, we really need to understand about these people. So do listen to my next podcast when it comes up. It's going to be about the trans community, and we're going to talk a little legal, little infomercial. But then trust me, it's going to help you to understand the community better. You need to understand what rights they're looking for, why do they need it. So yes, my next podcast is dedicated to the transgender community. And in my next podcast, I'll tell you what my other podcast is going to be about. So as we are revolving around this, I really love the response I'm getting on my podcast. Thank you so much for taking your time and listening for more than 22 minutes if you've reached at this point. And I just want to tell you that as we are circulating through the queer culture, if you have any topics you want to share with me or you want me to speak on, you can just message me. And it's very simple. You just have to go to www.closetedstance.com. You have to click on contact us page, and you just have to fill in few information like your name, your email ID, and your message. So once again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope you listen to the other ones coming in the row. And thank you for being so patient, kind, and have a wonderful and constructive day ahead. Bye bye.